Hey everybody, it's Rob, and we're back, and we're going to do another TryHackMe machine. This time we're doing a machine, and I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I'm going to say it's Soupedecode. Okay. It is a Windows machine. It is rated as easy. It's a domain controller. I personally am just not that great with hacking Windows, which is kind of sad, seeing as how most machines are Windows. Much more comfortable with Linux, but I didn't have too much trouble getting through this machine. I take really good notes, and anytime I'm stuck on anything, I refer to my notes, and it usually leads me down the correct path. So without further ado, you could see I'm connected to TryHackMe's VPN, and here's Soupdecode's IP address. The first thing we did was we ran an mmap scan. Now, these are all the ports typical of a domain controller. The only thing I didn't see was 5985 for Windows Remote Management, so that typically indicates to me that we won't be taking advantage of anything around using evil WinRM. Now, when you do these Windows boxes, especially if they're domain controllers, the first thing you should do is go into your hosts file and add the domain and the machine name to the host file. And I can show you that real quick. If you do sudo nano etc hosts, you can see I already have added an entry with the correct IP address for DC01 Soupedecode local and Soupedecode local domain. And just make sure there's a space in between the machine and the domain. So we're going to exit out of here. One of the first things I typically try to do, or you should typically try to do, when there is a Windows machine and you know SMB is available, is to try and enumerate the available SMB clients. And I'm going to do that right here. We're just going to hit enter. I'm going to hit enter for a blank password. And you can see all the typical shares are available for a domain controller, plus there's one called backup and another called users. Now, if we did SMB client, and we try to connect to backup, we get a prompt, but if we try to ls it, we get access denied. And I'm going to, just to save some time, I'm going to let you know that users, it's the same case with users. So at this point, really your only option is to try and see if you can enumerate any of the users on the machine. And one way to do that is to use a tool called Kabrute. And I'm not sure if it's on Kali Linux by default, but I'm going to include a link to this blog in the description below. And Raj has a really good guide on how to use Kabrute, how to get it from GitHub, and how to use it. And he has all of the situations where you might need it. And I'm going to tell you right now, this one right here, the password spray is going to come into play in this. Okay, so back to Kabrute. So what we're going to do is we're going to run Kabrute, and we're going to do user enumeration against the domain and see what comes back. And that's the command. So we're doing Kabrute user enumeration. We're using the Metasploit Unix users.txt against the DC's IP address and then the domain. We hit enter, Kabrute runs, and it comes back with 3. Usually if Kabrute it comes back with 2 for sure, usually administrator and guest, but this time it also came back with an admin. So typically, what you could do with these usernames is then you could do an RID brute with NXC or netexec. So that's what I chose to do using a blank password. So if we, and I need to make sure I have the right IP address in here. Give me 1 second. Just copy this password over here. Paste. All right. This is the command you want to use to do that. And I'm going to clear my screen first so that it's up at the top for you. NXC, we're going to query SMB, and here's the IP address of the domain controller. We're going to use that guest account with a blank password, and we're going to use the NXC module RID brute. And when we hit enter, you're going to see that we get pay dirt. It basically spits out all of the users in the domain. And when you see this list, it's pretty long. So let's give it a chance to run. And my, oh my, look at all these users. So I was feeling quite lazy today. Normally I would try and do some command line magic with awk or something like that. What I decided to do was I was going to grab all these users, and I think there's 500 of them or something like that, but you got to scroll all the way back up. And I think I started from bmark 01, and I just copied all the way down. And if you're running Kali Linux on a Windows box, this will be might be a helpful tip for you, especially if you have Excel. God, I forgot how many users there are. I was like, I hope we don't have to brute force this because this would take forever. But you want to make sure you get all these users. Should be okay. We're almost to the bottom here. All right. So we're going to copy everything up to where the web server and stuff starts popping up. And I'm just going to open Excel here, and I'm just going to paste it in. And then I'm going to just expand that. Now, if you take this, if you look, what we're really interested in is everything typically right after the backslash. So we want the username, and then we can also use the beginning parenthesis as a delimiter. So there, if you go to data in Excel and you do text to columns, very easily what you can do is use a delimited. You want to select delimited. You click next, and if for the first one we want to use a slash, and then we're going to click next, and we're going to click finish. And now it's basically separated all the rest of that noise from there. Now what we can do is we can do the same thing again, text to columns, and then this time for the delimiter we're going to use other, and we're going to use a space actually. Click next. Click finish. Now we have a nice list of all of the users. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this list, and that's much quicker. And I'm going to copy this list. I'm going to go back to my Linux box, and I'm going to go nano users.txt, I believe I called it. Yes. And I'm going to paste in this user list. Okay, so now we have this gigantic list of users. So Control O, Control X. Now, I couldn't imagine having to brute force all of those users. So what I decided to do was to use Kabrute password spray. And it's pretty simple. And he even uses a file called users.txt. So all I basically had to do was copy this, change the password, obviously. And use the a different IP address. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to copy. He actually was using a password. I'm actually going to use users.txt. So basically what this is doing right here, we're doing a password spray on the domain Soupedecode local. This is the DC's IP address. And then we're going to basically test to see if any of the users are using their username as a password. So basically it's going to look for the username as the password. So we're going to hit enter. And we already have a hit. So ybob317, his password is ybob317. I think that's all that comes back. So the first thing that we're going to do is now we're going to try and connect to the users SMB share. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying to connect to users on the machine using the ybob317 account. And when it asks for the password, I just type ybob317. And if we do an ls, we can see that it looks like we're somewhere in the Windows file system. It doesn't look like it. It looks like it's the users folder. It's definitely not the root of the drive. So I'm assuming here we're going to be able to get the user.txt. So what we're going to do is we're going to cd into ybob317. We're going to do an ls. We're going to go in cd desktop ls. There's users.txt. So we're going to have to get users.txt because the type won't work in this SMB prompt. Oop. It's actually user.txt. So we got that file, so we can go to our folders, open folder, and the user.txt, there's the flag. Okay, so we're 50% of the way there. So now what I thought that we could do was, I'm going to try to psexec, which is basically create a login using impacket psexec, which takes advantage of writable SMB shares. I don't think this worked, but we're going to try it just so I can show you. First, we're going to exit out of here, and then we're going to clear the screen. And if I pop this command in here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we're using impacket psexec, which works just like the Windows version of psexec. And we're trying to connect to the domain controller using the ybob317 account. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to see. Because none of these shares are writable, it can't create the shell for you. So this is something you should definitely try when you get credentials. It's always worth a try. I had my doubts that it would work since this is just a low-level user, but it's something you should definitely try. So really, the only other thing I can think to do was to try to, brute users, right? And, I wasn't sure that was going to work. I tried to brute. I'll be honest with you, I tried this command. It did not work. But I'll show it to you anyway, in case you want to ever use this command to enumerate windows. So basically, I just used kbrute to try and brute force the admin account, because that's not a standard account. But it was just taking forever, and I wasn't getting any results. The only other thing that I could try that, it's one of the things, like, for example, that they teach you when you take TCM securities course, is to do Kerberoasting. So ultimately, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to use get NP users impackets tool, get NP users, to see if there's anybody that has a Kerberoastable account. So that's what we're going to do. I'll paste the command in here. It's actually GetUserSPNs. So copy. This is why I have a lot of notes for Windows, because there's just so many tools that you can use, and Windows is pretty complicated with Active Directory and LDAP. It's impossible to remember a lot of this stuff. So I have a sheet that I go through that tells me, you should try this, you should try this, you should try this, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. So basically what we're doing is we're looking for Kerberoastable users right now. And we're using impackets GetUserSPNs. We're requesting, we're making this request using the ybob317 account, and we're using the DC IP to connect. So if we hit enter, ybob317. Whoa, and we got a bunch of hashes. So from what I can remember, I tried a bunch of these. Okay, the one that you're gonna be able to use with hashcat. So if you don't know what these are, let me explain. When you find Kerberoastable accounts, what it'll do is it'll spit out their Kerberos hash. Okay, and there's a bunch of them here. There's one for file service, one for the firewall service. There's one for the backup service. There's one for the web service. There's the local monitoring service. So I tried all of them. The only one that you're going to be able to actually crack with hashcat is this one. So the way you do that is we copy the entire hash. Excuse me. We do nano hash.txt and we paste this hash in. Paste selection. Okay. Now, Control O to save, Control X to exit. So if you look, we now have hash.txt. I believe I have a, yeah. This is a website you also want to bookmark. If you're ever trying to guess which hashcat mode you should be using, you're going to want to bookmark this site. But typically, I mean, I know the main ones, you know, NTLM, you know, it's Kerberos is 13100. So, but if you're ever lost, they give you example hashes and they tell you which mode to use. So I will put this link in the description below. So now that we have this hash.txt, what we want to do is we want to crack it, okay? Which is pretty simple. All you do is you use hashcat. So paste. So we're using hashcat mode 13100, which is for Kerberos, hash.txt, and we're using the RockU list. Now this may take a few minutes. So once it starts to crack, I will pause the video and then we'll return when I have the results. Okay, actually that didn't take that long. Here's the hash, and then here's the password. It's password 123 with 2 exclamation points. So now that we have this password, what we can do is we can use it to try and enumerate a little bit further. And what I'm going to try to do is to connect to the SMB share that we could not connect to before. Okay, so we're going to do SMB and we're going to connect to backup. Okay, and the user is file service. Okay, if you look, file service is right here, and then here's the password. So we're going to actually make sure we copy this password. Copy. And then when I hit enter, it'll prompt me for the password. And then I just paste it in here and hit enter. And we do an ls. And now we have this backup extract.txt available to us. So what we got to do is get backup. Okay, so now we're going to open that and see what it has inside of it. And it looks like it has it looks like computer accounts with NTLM hashes. So I tried to do a couple of different things with these, and none of it was successful. I tried to secrets dump. I was successfully able to do some things, even with the other accounts. I was able to do an LDAP domain dump, but there really wasn't any useful information in there. But I tried to, you know, enumerate further, and I just couldn't. So what I decided to do was I did figure out that the one that we're interested in, after some trial and error, I tried to log into the SMB share and tried to access the C drive and a bunch of other drives. I wasn't able to get into the admin share, but I was able to get into the C drive. Okay, and I used the file server account. Kind of makes sense, and I'll show you what I mean. Now you could do some, you know, NXC. You could have a file for the username and a file for the hash, pass the hash, and see if, you know, it'll tell you if you have access that way. But because there was so few here, I just did it manually. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, the only thing that I had to look up, and I found another good website, was how to use the hash. I had never accessed an SMB share with a hash. So luckily it's pretty easy. All you got to do is use this tac pwnt hash and then include the hash. And the part of the hash that you want is this part right here, the second part. This is, I believe, oh, I just screwed that up. Edit, undo. This is the LM part of the hash. This is the LM. I can't remember. I think this might be the NT part right here. This is the NT part of the hash. That's what you want. So to be able to do this, what you got to do is, and this was a first for me, like I said, which is why I needed to use the website. And again, this is another one of those Wadcoms is another one of those websites like GTFO bins that you need to make sure you bookmark because it's super, super useful. I mean, literally, they give you the answer right here on how to use this. So if we come back here, we're doing SMB client. We're going to try and connect to the C drive. We're using the computer account file server. We're passing a hash, and then this is just the domain. So if we hit enter, we have the SMB prompt. And if we do an LS, we are connected to the C drive. This is the root of the C drive. So I wasn't exactly sure what to do from here. So all I did was try to go to CD users. If we do an LS, now we have, oh, I made a mistake, CD users. LS. Now we have all of the users. I tried to get into the admin, do an LS, CD desktop. I don't think there's anything in here from what I remember. LS, nope. So then I thought that admin account was going to come into play somewhere, but it really didn't. So what we did is we went into the administrator, LS, CD desktop, and to my surprise, when I do an LS, LS, there's the root.txt. So if we get root.txt and it lets us grab it, yep. So, and I'll make sure I blur this out, but we now have the root.txt. There it is. So this machine was, took me a long time. So I got through it pretty quickly here, but that's just because of a lot of trial and error and saving, I mean, I did some crazy stuff like trying to brute force the admin account. I was trying to do, you know, a little bit of brute forcing with the hashes and the computer accounts. None of that was working. The big tools that were successful for me here were kbrute, NXC, and in-packet get user SPNs. So basically what we did to compromise this machine was we enumerated the users using kbrute, and then we did an NXC RID brute to get all of the users off the machine. Then I just did some manipulation of the users to try and create a nice clean file. And then we did kbrute password spray and basically looked for anybody who potentially was using the username as their password. We found one that enabled us to basically look for Kerberoastable users using in-packet GetUserSPNs. And then after we did that, we got the Kerberos hash for the file service. We cracked it using hashcat. That enabled us to connect to the backup drive, backup folder on the SMB shares, which contained all of the user accounts and hashes. We used the file server computer account and its hash to log into the C drive, C share on the SMB share list. And there we were able to access the root.txt. So it was a little bit convoluted. It took me several hours. So don't be ashamed if it took you a while, or you know, if you don't completely understand everything. I have very basic knowledge when it comes to Windows as far as hacking. SMB shares, I always know to look for AS rep roasting, Kerber roasting, you know, enumerating the users using Kabroot, you know, some basic certificate services stuff, but for the most part, every Windows box is a challenge for me. So hopefully this walkthrough was helpful. Hopefully you found it useful. All the links will be in the description below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms, throw those below in a comment. I'll be happy to chat with you. I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.